I didn't know what had happened until the weekend with this Heather du Plessis-Allan situation. I saw this story in Spinoff over the weekend. This story in Spinoff is titled, Heather du Plessis-Allan should be ashamed of how she bullied my daughter. So that, of course, pricked the ears up. We didn't do a show last night because we were off celebrating the Queen. So tonight's the first chance we've had to talk about it after the weekend. I will come back to this because there is a bit at the end here that I think is warranting of reading. But I would like to play you some audio. And because it's just audio, because I believe News Talk ZB, they either never uploaded it, which I find problematic because they upload everything, or I think what's more likely is they deleted it in the weekend. So I have audio to play for you, and I'll probably just leave this picture there while I'm playing the audio because it's literally just an audio file off the cut wall, and you can have a listen for yourself. So there's a few clips to play. The first clip is actually really interesting because it's Heather du Plessis-Allan talking to Izzy Cook. You know how we talked about this as well when we were talking about how there was that $5,000 fee for traffic engagement if they were going to march in the streets. And we talked about that and we were like, the council's not going to pay for it. They have to pay for it. What are they going to do? Well, News Talk ZB talked to Izzy about that as well. And I want to just play this in its entirety. It's only 90 seconds because I want you to hear the tone of Heather du Plessis-Allan in this one. She's very engaging. She's very nice. She's very encouraging. And I think this all just adds to the abhorrent nature of the second interview. So this is before the strike, the Schools for Climate strike. I don't know the title of that. I keep getting it wrong. Before they did it, when the news came out that the council wanted $5,000 out of these teenagers if they were going to have a hold of it. Have a listen to this. So this is the first interview. This is before it happened. This is not the interview that we're going to look at more closely.
Wellington school students will have to foot a $5,000 bill if they want to protest climate inaction. The School Strike for Climate group had planned to walk to Parliament next Friday, but they don't have the money to pay for the private traffic management services to safely protest. Izzy Cook is one of the organisers. Hi, Izzy.
Hi.
So you guys can't pull together $5,000?
No, it's pretty difficult. We've asked some other organisations for funding, but yeah, it's not looking like we're going to get there.
What did they say? They can't afford to help?
Well, most of the organisations that we talked to are actually really generous. They do give us a bit of money, but $5,000 is a lot of money to raise.
Yeah. Wellington City Council, is it fair enough? They paid for the last two protests. Is it fair enough that they don't pay for this one?
It's definitely a pretty complicated issue. Wellington City Council has said to us that they can't afford to fund this one. Which is interesting, but I think one of the biggest issues is that, of course, as school students or, people under the age of 18, we can't vote. So it's one of our few ways of kind of expressing our opinions in a democratic society. So it makes things difficult for us, for sure.
What are you going to do instead if you can't march?
So in Wellington, the protest has changed to just being a rally that meets at Parliament at 12 p.m.
And that you don't need any traffic management for that?
No, we don't.
Yeah, and good thing Trevor Mallard's not there in case he turns the sprinklers on you, eh?
Yeah, probably.
Jokey joke.
Good on you, Izzy. Best of luck with it. Izzy Cook, Climate Strike for School Strike for Climate, right. Wellington organiser.
So it was lighthearted. It was free. It was a minute 42, and it was like, oh, well done, good on you. Yep, go for it. It was nice, yeah. It was lighthearted, and then of course they did their strike for climate change. Izzy Cook comes back on ZB. And if that's your experience of being on ZB, biggest radio station in the country, dominant in all forces of media, you'd be like, oh, last time I spoke to Heather, that she was nice, that was fine. The story that her mother wrote, or the article or post that her mother put out, basically looks like that Izzy didn't even tell her parents that she was going on ZB. I mean, maybe she should have, but I guess if you've just had that lovely interaction, maybe you wouldn't think twice about it. So this is the interview after the strike. And I'm not playing the whole thing, but I've picked out a couple of salient points because there's one part that everyone's talking about, which is the demeaning part. So the tone has changed, and Heather du Plessis-Allan tries to nail down the 16-year-old with specifics and snidey sideways comments. Like I think at the end of this clip, when they're talking about feeding the world, she goes, okay, so they can go hungry. Just think about, if you've seen the movie Mean Girls, just think about Mean Girls, or think about that bitchy girl in school that always wanted to get the last word in and always wanted to kind of to finish with a mocking comment as opposed to an actual conversation. So this is the latest conversation on Friday. Heather du Plessis-Allan talking to Izzy about how we're going to feed people.
How many people does our dairy and beef
I
industry
am going to
feed?
stop there. It's going to pause. It's going to come back. But one thing I forgot to mention, and please, if you don't see it, obviously, just listen to the patronizing tone, speaking to her like she's a moron. Like, okay, now, how many people? Just listen to the tone. It's just revolting.
How many people does our dairy and beef industry feed?
I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that most of the industrial farming in New Zealand is actually exported overseas. So most of it doesn't even feed New Zealanders.
So are we happy if people overseas go hungry?
I don't think that if we aren't eating beef, we can't be producing other
Good
crops.
answer.
So it doesn't necessarily mean
Good
that
answer.
people overseas are going hungry. They could just begin to produce crops locally and begin to eat locally as well, which would be much more sustainable.
So they need to feed themselves.
Really, roll my eyes while I say that. It's already revolting in my opinion. It's just gross. Now remember, 16 years old, it's aspirational. They've got these ideas. They want to investigate. You know, you spoke to a 16-year-old in 1981. So how are you going to stop apartheid? I don't know, but I want to get out here in the streets and say no to segregation. Well, but how are you going to stop it? Oh, but so you're okay with them losing their workers? How are you going to do it? You know, you don't. They're young people who are aspirational and trying to give something a go. Got a couple of questions I'm going to play for you because I just wanted to show you the tone of the interview and the ridiculous nature of the conversation. And then I'll play you the bit that I might have to leave the room for. Probably have to take my headphones off. So she's asking, Heather du Plessis-Allan is asking Izzy about where are we going to make money? Just where? And look, you may agree or disagree with Izzy's response that maybe we don't have to focus on beef. I'm paraphrasing, but it's actually an okay answer. Maybe there's other ways to feed the world. My paraphrase, you know? So, but Heather du Plessis-Allan goes on to try and make a fool of her and try and nail her down.
So what are we going to do then if we're not sending our dairy and beef overseas to try to make some money to pay for you to go to school? What are we going to make money from, Izzy?
Because your parents are farmers to pay for you to go to school. It's like, this is not what we're talking about. Another question here. And this is the part that goes into the ugly, but there's two more clips. The first one's short because another one of their demands is about air travel. And I get it. There's a lot of climate change activists who want to stop air travel, stop the emissions going into the environment through planes. And so one of their demands is about air travel and unnecessary air travel. So Heather du Plessis-Allan asks her a question around that.
Izzy, how do you ban unnecessary air travel, which is one of your demands? How do you define? Okay, so I'm going to fly up for a conference. I think that's necessary. Do you think that's necessary?
No, I do not.
How do we ban that? Who's going to be the guy who stands there and goes, Heather, you're banned. Who's going to be that person?
I'll say again, in the 1960s, 70s, and 70s, if a 16-year-old was in the street protesting against the Vietnam War, do you think they had all the answers? Oh, so how are you going to stop the draft? I don't fucking know. I just want to stop the war. Or how are we going to do? I don't know. I want the planet to be alive in 100 years from now. I'm 16. I don't want to be dismissive to Izzy either. But you know what I'm saying? It's like this is a 16-year-old who is trying on. I'm not being patronizing to 16-year-olds, but trying on for size the political leanings and the desire that this particular individual wants for the future. They may change in 5 years from now. She may have answers to those questions in 10 years from now. She's 16. Now, this is the bit that I got furious about. And because of the system that I'm using, I can't stop it. It's 1:44. How do I ask this of you? If this was your 16-year-old being spoken to by a grown-ass woman who is a professional journalist and a broadcaster, I'd like to know how you would feel once your 16-year-old got off the phone. That's all I'll say. So basically that question about air travel was a setup. She was setting her up because she'd been looking through her Instagram pages. Well, allegedly, this is what the mother has asserted, because Izzy was recently in Fiji on a plane to get to Fiji. So Heather du Plessis-Allan sets her up and then embarrasses her. And it's the laughter that's the worst part for me. The laughter. So demeaning.
Am I allowed to go to Fiji? Is that necessary?
In the current climate crisis, I don't think that that's necessary.
When was the last time you were on a plane?
I'm not sure. Maybe a few months ago, to be honest.
Where'd you go?
Fiji.
Izzy! Izzy! Don't you care about the climate, Izzy?
Of course I care about the climate.
Not enough. You went to Fiji. Izzy, come on, mate. Are you serious? Are you serious, Izzy?
No, it's pretty
Are you still there?
It is pretty ironic, but to be honest, it's not really a trip that I wanted to go on, but I can't really get out of it. Because
Why'd you go? Why'd you go?
My parents wanted to go.
Izzy,
I didn't want to go.
How are you embarrassed that your parents did that to the planet and then forced you to do it as well?
Of course I'm not embarrassed.
Did you have a terrible time?
Not really. I didn't have to do anything.
See, I'm sorry, mate. Listen, you're such a champion. I think you've got a brilliant future ahead of you. And are you doing another strike soon?
I'll just demean you one more time,
Yeah,
though.
we'll look to.
Good. We'll talk to you again. I might get you back on the show. Izzy Cook, who's a school strike for climate Wellington organizer. Anyway, Rod Orham's going to be with us on a similar subject.
Honestly, I be real. In your in the comments, you're a 55-year-old parent at this stage. You've got or a 50-year-old parent or a 45-year-old parent, and you've got a 16-year-old daughter who's standing up for what she believes in. Forget if you do or you don't or whatever the cause is. And that's the response from a seasoned journalist, mother of one, broadcaster on the most powerful media outlet in the country. I'm ropeable again. If I was in a radio station now, I'd need to play some ads. Honestly, it's just one of the most repugnant things. And I've heard some fucking repugnant things. I've probably done some fucking repugnant things, but it's one of the most repugnant things I've ever heard of a broadcaster. It's just disgusting. It's repulsive. And if she hasn't already apologized and mea culpa, hearing it again, I think I will be making a complaint to the Broadcasting Standards Authority, and I think probably there will be a lot of people who will. I'm not encouraging you to. I'm not interested in doing like a pile on, but I think I'm going to, because it was absolutely revolting. Absolutely revolting. That's the standard of journalism. That's the standard. Actually, no. That's the character of the person who is the feature host on the afternoons in News Talk ZB. Fuck the journalism. That's the character of the person. Grown-ass woman, mother, journalist, speaks to a 16-year-old lad. Agree or disagree? Like, let's say it's your child, your grandchild, your sibling who believes in something that you don't believe, but they get treated like that on the radio. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.